The most experienced tropical travelers on Earth carry no rain jacket. Not because they stay dry, they get soaked every day. It's because in a place like Thailand, where the air itself is 90% water, your expensive rain shell isn't keeping you dry. It's cooking you. In the next 20 minutes, I'll show you the fabric science that beats the monsoon, with everything in one small bag. Here's the fantasy the outdoor industry sells you. Rain starts falling. You zip up a sleek, breathable, waterproof shell, and you stay perfectly dry while everyone else scrambles. It works beautifully in a cold mountain drizzle. But drop that same jacket into a Thai monsoon, and something strange happens. Within minutes, you're wetter inside the jacket than the people standing in the rain without one. Your own sweat has nowhere to go. The problem isn't the jacket. The problem is physics, and a marketing story that quietly ignores it. So travelers who actually live in these climates threw out the old rulebook. They stopped trying to block the water and started managing it. This is the story of how a single bag of the right fabric beats the wettest place on Earth. Let's start with why the jacket fails. To understand the failure, you have to understand what waterproof breathable actually means. Take Gore-Tex, the most famous fabric in the category. It's built around a thin membrane, covered in billions of microscopic pores. Each pore is small enough to block a liquid water droplet from getting in, but large enough to let a single water vapor molecule, your evaporated sweat, escape out. On paper, it's brilliant. Rain stays out, sweat gets out, you stay dry. But that whole system depends on one hidden condition. One thing that has to be true for the magic to work at all. And in the tropics, that condition simply doesn't exist. That hidden condition is a difference in humidity. Water vapor doesn't move through the membrane by magic. It moves because of a gradient. Vapor always travels from the wetter side to the drier side. In a cold climate, the air outside your jacket is dry, and the air inside, full of your sweat, is humid. That difference pulls your sweat outward. The jacket breathes. Now walk into Bangkok in the wet season. The air outside is already saturated, around 90% humidity. There is no drier side. The gradient collapses. Your sweat has nowhere to go, so it stays, condensing on the inside of the very jacket that promised to keep you dry. And it gets worse the harder you work. Walking through a humid city, climbing a temple staircase, hauling a bag through a market, your body dumps heat and sweat fast. A waterproof shell traps that heat like a greenhouse. Experts who test rain gear for a living put it bluntly, in hot, humid conditions, no waterproof material on Earth is breathable enough to keep up with how fast you sweat. So you face a choice that isn't really a choice. Get wet from the rain on the outside, or get just as wet from your own sweat on the inside, while overheating. The jacket doesn't win either way. Which raises the real question. If blocking the water is a losing game, what if you stop blocking it entirely? This is the mental flip that changes everything. The experienced tropical traveler accepts a simple truth: in this climate, you are going to be wet. Period. From rain, from sweat, from the air itself. So the goal is no longer staying dry. The goal becomes getting dry again, fast. Comfort in the tropics isn't about never getting wet. It's about how quickly you return to dry after you do. And that single shift moves the entire problem off your rain jacket and onto something far more important: the fabric touching your skin every hour of every day. The jacket was never the hero of this story. The base layer is. So what actually dries fast? This is where travelers split into two tribes and start something close to a holy war. On one side, high-tech synthetics. Polyester, nylon, engineered plastic spun into thread. On the other, merino wool, a natural fiber from a specific breed of sheep, worshipped by minimalist travelers everywhere. Both promise the same thing: stay comfortable, dry fast, don't stink after days of wear. But they get there through completely opposite science. One repels water. One embraces it. And which one actually wins in 90% humidity is not the answer most people expect. To see why, we have to go down to the level of a single thread. Start with synthetics. A polyester fiber is hydrophobic, it literally fears water. The plastic itself absorbs almost none. Studies put polyester's moisture absorption at well under 1% of its weight. So where does your sweat go? Not into the fiber, but around it. The threads are engineered to move liquid along their surface through capillary action, the same force that pulls water up a paper towel. Sweat spreads across a huge surface area and evaporates fast. The clever part is something called a bicomponent fiber. One side of the thread is water-hating, the other side is water-loving. That built-in imbalance physically pushes moisture from the skin side to the outer side, where it can escape. Wicking and quick-dry, engineered into a single strand. Now the opposite philosophy, merino wool. Where polyester fears water, merino welcomes it. Merino is hygroscopic, its fibers can absorb up to 30% of their own weight in water and still feel dry to the touch. 30%. How? The outside of each wool fiber repels water, while the core drinks it in. That creates a push-pull effect that pulls sweat off your skin and locks it deep inside the fiber, away from your body. You stay comfortable, even when the wool is technically damp. But here's the catch that starts the war. All that absorbed water has to leave eventually. And a fiber that holds 30% of its weight in moisture takes longer to dry than a plastic that holds almost none. In a humid climate, the difference is everything. So let's put numbers on it. In most real-world testing, merino dries roughly twice as slowly as an equivalent synthetic. Twice. In a dry mountain environment, that barely matters, both dry overnight, and merino's warmth and odor resistance win easily. That's why the ultralight hiking world loves it. But the tropics are a different planet. When the air is at 90% humidity, nothing dries quickly, and the material that started with the least absorbed water has a massive head start. The synthetic, holding almost no water to begin with, sheds what little it has and moves on. The merino, saturated deep in its core, stays damp for hours in air too wet to pull the moisture back out. In the one environment where drying speed matters most, physics tilts toward plastic. But drying speed isn't the whole fight. Because synthetics have a famous, embarrassing weakness. They stink. After a single day of heavy sweat, a polyester shirt can smell genuinely foul, and here's why. Synthetic fibers are hydrophobic, so their surface stays coated in the oils and sweat that odor-causing bacteria love to feed on. The bacteria multiply, and the smell sets in fast. Merino does the opposite. It pulls moisture away from the surface and locks it inside, keeping the outside dry and hostile to bacteria. Wool also contains natural compounds that inhibit bacterial growth outright. The result, merino travelers can wear the same shirt for days, sometimes weeks, without it smelling. For one bag travel, where you carry 2 shirts total, that is not a small thing. It might be the whole game. So the industry did what industry does. It tried to buy its way out. To fix the stink, synthetic garments get treated with antimicrobial coatings, most famously Polygiene, which is built on silver salts, specifically silver chloride, washed into the fabric like a dye. Silver is genuinely toxic to odor-causing bacteria, so a treated synthetic shirt can fight smell almost as well as wool, for a while. But it's a coating, not the fiber itself. Every wash slowly strips it away. The odor resistance you paid for fades over the life of the garment, while Merino's is baked in for as long as the wool exists. Now you can see the real shape of the decision. It's not which fabric is better. It's which compromise fits your trip. And for a wet, hot, one-bag journey, that trade-off has a surprising answer. Here's how experienced tropical one-baggers actually resolve it. They don't pick a side. They build a system. Synthetic wear drying speed is life or death, underwear, an active shirt for sweating through, socks that must dry by morning. Merino wear odor and comfort matter most, and you can afford slower drying, a sleep shirt, O-town layer you want to stay fresh for days. 2 fibers, 2 jobs, each doing what it's physically best at. Not a war, a division of labor. But even the perfect shirt won't save you if your backpack turns into a bucket. Because in a monsoon, the threat to your gear isn't the rain hitting your clothes. It's the water that finds its way inside the bag. And that requires a completely different trick. Walk through a monsoon and you learn a humbling lesson. No backpack is truly waterproof. The fabric might be coated, but water sneaks through the zippers, the seams, the tiny stitch holes where the shoulder straps attach. Given an hour of tropical rain, water finds every one of them. So the pros stop trusting the bag to keep water out. Instead, they wage the war inside. The strategy is called a dry bag system. Waterproof sacks, roll top, welded seams, no zippers, that live inside your regular backpack. Your clothes, your electronics, your passport go in the dry bags. The outer backpack can soak through completely, and it does not matter. The things that must stay dry are sealed in their own waterproof world. And this is where minimalism becomes a superpower, not a sacrifice. If you carry 2 shirts instead of 7, your entire wardrobe fits into one small dry bag the size of a loaf of bread. Less gear means a smaller waterproof volume to protect, which means a smaller, lighter, more reliable system. The heavy traveler fights the monsoon with more stuff, more bags, more shells, more backups, more things to get wet and stay wet. The minimalist fights it with less, a handful of fast-drying pieces and a couple of sealed bags. One of these systems is dripping and miserable by noon. The other is dry, light, and already moving on. Fewer items don't just save space. They make the whole waterproofing problem small enough to actually solve. But let's be honest and give the other side its due. Because the ditch the rain jacket advice has real limits, and pretending otherwise would make me just another gear influencer. If you're not moving, sitting on a long-tail boat for 3 hours in driving rain, or riding a scooter at speed, you're not generating enough heat to sweat, and a shell's greenhouse problem disappears. In that exact situation, a lightweight jacket or a cheap poncho genuinely helps. And in cooler, higher altitude parts of northern Thailand or a mountain trek, the humidity drops, the gradient returns, and a breathable shell starts working the way it was designed to. So the honest rule isn't waterproof is always a lie, it's waterproof is the wrong default for hot, wet, low altitude travel, which is most of Thailand, most of the year. There's a second fair objection, and it's about the planet. Synthetic fabrics are plastic. Every time you wash them, they shed microplastic fibers that flow into rivers and oceans. Merino, by contrast, is a natural, renewable, biodegradable fiber. So the fast-drying synthetic that wins on pure performance in the heat carries an environmental cost that merino simply doesn't. For a lot of thoughtful travelers, that tips the scale back toward wool, accepting slower drying as the price of a smaller footprint. There's no clean winner here. Peak tropical performance and lowest environmental impact pull in opposite directions. The best you can do is choose your compromise with your eyes open, instead of letting a marketing tag choose it for you. So strip it all down to what actually survives contact with a monsoon. 1. Stop trying to stay dry. Aim to dry fast. That single reframe beats a closet full of waterproof gear. 2. Match the fiber to the job. Synthetic wear speed matters, merino wear freshness does. 3. Protect from the inside. Seal what matters in dry bags, and let the outer bag get wet. 4. Carry less, so there's less to protect and less to dry. None of this is about buying the most expensive jacket in the store. It's the opposite. It's understanding the physics well enough that you can carry almost nothing and still walk out of a downpour, comfortable, organized, and dry where it counts. The gear was never the answer. The knowledge was. Step back and notice what really happened here. We took a problem everyone tries to solve by buying a better jacket, a pricier shell, more waterproof everything, and we solved it instead by understanding a gradient of humidity, a hydrophobic thread, a roll-top seal. The most capable tropical travelers aren't the ones with the most gear. They're the ones who understood the water well enough to stop fighting it head-on and started working with it. That's the quiet pattern underneath almost every kind of expert. They don't overpower the problem. They understand it so deeply that the problem gets small. A monsoon that soaks a tourist to misery is, to them, just weather. Predictable. Manageable. Even pleasant. And maybe that's the real lesson hiding inside a bag of quick-dry shirts. We're trained to meet every problem by adding something. More equipment, more protection, more stuff. But often the elegant answer is to understand the forces at play and carry less. The minimalist in the monsoon isn't depriving themselves. They've bought something better than gear, freedom. The freedom to move fast, pack in 2 minutes, and never fear the sky. So here's my question for you. What's one thing in your life you've been trying to solve by adding more, when the real answer might be understanding it well enough to need less? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. If this changed how you see a simple rain jacket, that's exactly what this channel is for. One deep dive every week into the hidden science of the systems around you. Subscribe so the next one finds you. And you'll want the next one. Because we're staying with water but leaving the rain behind. Next time, the invisible engineering inside a single bottle of drinking water. How the most ordinary thing you'll buy in Thailand travels through a hidden network more complex than the internet just to reach your hand safe. The monsoon was only the beginning. The real story is what happens when the water finally stops. Catch the pulse, lead the future. I'll see you there.